light on how they're reporting the tax debt to the credit agencies now for the repayment that you're talking about? Like it's reporting on individuals or it's on the companies?
The tax debt.
Both. Yeah. Yep. So we've seen it. I'm not sure if it's mandatory, but we've seen it when there's no warnings, as well as when there's been warning letters. Often a client then doesn't get notification it's happened. Clients are then tell us it's suppliers, so whether the supplier has got credit watch or that sort of thing, but often a client won't even receive notification that it's happened. I'm not sure exactly the mechanisms. I'm assuming it's an internal email or special alert that goes direct to the credit reporting agencies, but it's happening almost the day after the warnings expire.
The problem I see with the credit reporting stuff is there's no actual legislation that says the ATO must report a tax debt to a credit reporting bureau. What it is an exception to the secrecy provisions that say that they can, subject to certain criteria being met. And for sure there will be cases where the criteria is not met. And I think in future somebody is going to have a business that is irreparably damaged as a result of the credit reporting, and somebody's going to take it to court and challenge it. It'll be really interesting to see what happens, because if the criteria is not met and they've disclosed a tax debt and it's caused damage and there's no positive obligation to disclose a tax debt to a credit reporting bureau, theoretically that's a breach of the secrecy provisions.
But it'll be a couple of years before we see that judgment.
Yeah, probably a couple of years. Yeah.
Also, if there's too much of that going on, this credit reporting that's by client justified, it'll get to an equilibrium point where credit officers will say, well, okay, it's just one of these, it's no doubt it's an error. In other words, they won't have the impact.
And that's the thing. So actually when the credit reporting stuff was being developed, one of the main principles of credit reporting bureaus is that they don't change their credit reports very easily. So if you had a judgment debt, for example, you effectively had to get a court order to get them to remove the judgment debt. In order to push this, the ATO only negotiated with credit reporting bureaus who were willing to change the record within 2 days of them notifying them. So that's extraordinary. Like there's no other debtor who has that. That's their alleviation for if they get it wrong. That they have not a power, but they can request the credit reporting bureaus to change it within 2 days. A lot of the credit reporting bureaus refused. And then one of the credit reporting bureaus didn't refuse. They got all the tax debts, and now all of them are jumping on and signing up to it.
And it's often quicker to negotiate a payment arrangement and get a client into a payment arrangement and a compliant position than it is to try and get a credit reporting notification removed that was incorrectly put on. So our default would be to get them in an arrangement quickly, which we can do in a week or so for urgent matters. It's normally 3 or 4 weeks, but we've done it in a week, and that's quicker than trying to go through the whole process of this should have never been reported in the first place.
And I just want to make a point about some of these mass awareness campaigns, because they're not just all director penalties and credit reporting bureau. There was one that was done in WA that was targeted to labour hire firms, and what they were doing was changing certain labour hire firms from PAYG withholders that were small or medium to large, right? Now, under the legislation to do that, the Commissioner has to give notice and to give the taxpayer 2 months' notice before doing that. Because if you change from medium to large, it's a huge impact on your cash flow. You're going from a monthly remitter to a weekly payer and remitter at the same time. We had a client who we lodged an objection regarding this about, and then we asked the ATO to produce a copy of this notice. And it turns out they gave us a copy of a template letter, and they said, we don't have a copy of what was issued, but this is what would have been issued. And the letter had X, X, Y, Y, all these variables. And, we said to them at the time, this is a statutory notice you have to give before you can actually change a taxpayer to this other status. And they had no record of it. And they said, no, what we do is we send a copy to the tax agents with a list of all affected clients. So the tax agent out of the blue will have these template variable letters saying all these clients may or may not be affected, and that's what they think is enough notice to give. And that's just one campaign. We're seeing on multiple occasions through FOI where there are these letters that are purportedly being sent, but there's actually no record of them. and we've got taxpayers saying they never received it.
And that large withhold is a massive issue that we see because it's a huge shift for a business to go from paying monthly to weekly. And so there's weekly reporting and weekly paying. And so then if you don't do that for 2 months, you're not late on 2 months of lodgements, you're suddenly late on 8. And so then when we're trying to get arrangements in place, the non-compliance is 8 non-compliance markers effectively instead of 2, and where clients have switched from being on monthly compared to weekly, we often see them 3 months after that switch because they just can't catch up.